All right, everybody on YouTube, can you hear me? Looks like we're going to be getting started here. Oh, Starter179 says, any thoughts on the news that Dallas is banning Airbnb in single-family neighborhoods? That is a great conversation to have. If anybody here on YouTube would like to talk about that, definitely let me know. I'd love to bring somebody in to do that. Instagram, make sure you guys head over to YouTube. We're going to be shutting this thing down pretty quick here. I'll give you the shout out if you head over to YouTube. I'll give it to you on that. How about that, guys? YouTube.com/@DavidGreen24. We are live right now. All right, everybody, what's going on YouTube? We're just waiting a couple minutes for Kyle to make his way in. He was at a house letting in an inspector for one of our clients. So we're going to be talking about lawsuits. We're going to be talking about the future of real estate. We're going to be talking about this crazy market like we do every Friday. Who here, like in the chat, can let me know where you're coming in from, what market you're in, and what your market's like right now? Let's see if we can get a consensus for what markets are like across the country. So let me know in the chat on YouTube where you're listening from. What market are you in? Mike H says the beard looks better on YouTube. Go figure. Yeah, part of it is the angle of my phone sitting on the computer looking up at me versus looking down. So it doesn't look great, but I think it probably does look better on the YouTube. Lisa says, you mean you sell real estate too? I'm guessing that was a joke, but yes, we have a real estate team. We spend a lot of our time helping other people build wealth through real estate like you fine folks. Ryan Keenan from Connecticut. Yvonne. So nice they named her twice, coming from Pennsylvania. Angela Haydorn, always one of my perennial favorites. So nice to see her here up in Pittsburgh. So everything is selling above asking with mostly cash offers. That's pretty crazy. Angela, nice to see you here. Chris Figueroa says, expensive and competitive, but you didn't say what market you're in, so we don't know where that is. Let us know, Chris, where that's happening. Rob Allegrini, Vancouver, British Columbia. The market is tight with not many listings. You guys noticing that's going on right now? My personal take is that the government was trying to drop asset prices by raising rates, especially on real estate. Well, what happened is, like you should have expected, because they don't understand real estate, and every time they try to tweak with it, they screw it up. They raised rates thinking that they were going to make prices come down, but all that happened was less people put their house on the market to sell. So there's less supply, so prices stayed high, and it's more expensive. Genius, but that's the way that it worked out. S. Watson says, we're in Columbus, Georgia. Our short-term rental market is stable. That's good to hear because they're not stable everywhere. Lisa Turin says, yes, I was kidding. Oh, thank you for that, Lisa. Southern California, but flying into Oakland and visiting family in Brentwood this weekend. Hampton around the corner from your office. That is crazy because you know where my office is, which I could make the whole stalker comment that everyone always makes, but why do people do that? Can you guys explain to me how every single time you meet someone new, their first thought is you're a serial killer or a stalker? Like, what is up with that? When, like, none of you ever have met a serial killer in your lives, yet everybody's always afraid that when they meet a new person, they're a serial killer. Do you think that might be part of a narcissistic element of our personalities that wants to believe that we're so important that a serial killer would want to kill us? Is it delusions of grandeur that causes that? Like, you meet a new person and you're like, hey, do you want to get dinner? Do you want to go for a run? And they're like, oh, how do I know you're not going to bury me in the woods? You're like, because that doesn't benefit me. And frankly, you don't know anyone that would be burying people in the woods. Why does your mind go there? So no, I don't think Lisa is stalking me. I actually find it endearing that you know that where my office is and that the Hampton is close, because it is literally eyesight from where I'm sitting in Brentwood right now recording this. That's very cool. Get out of Oakland as fast as you can. That's my advice there, but stay in Brentwood as long as you can because it's very nice. Mike H with the emoji covering its mouth. I'm assuming that's because I said something funny. Not sure what it was, but I'll take it. Edgar Ortiz in Santa Rosa. That's local. Javier out in New Jersey, which is a hot market. Fishing Pete, we've had you on the show before. Says, what's going on, David? Who turned on the heat today in the Central Valley? Yeah, it is hot, and I love it, man. I was out there walking around in the sun like a solar battery, just trying to get charged up before I came in here. Not everybody likes the heat, but I like it. In every case, other than when I'm trying to sleep. I can't sleep when it's hot. It's horrible. So I like it hot all the time, but not at night. Yvonne says, yes, not many listings on her market. Lisa Turin, inventory is tight in Altaloma and Rancho Cucamonga as well. Starter 179 says Dallas, the sellers are not coming down on prices. Inventory is picking up a bit. That's a little bit of good news. Mickey, West Chicago suburbs, not much listings. Prices holding strong. Many sell over asking price. Isn't it funny how this is happening at the same time that everyone keeps talking about the crash that has to happen and only idiots would buy real estate? There could be a crash at some point. I'm not saying it can't happen. No one gets held accountable for telling you not to buy real estate. And so everyone does it. You're a moron. You shouldn't be buying. And they just say this stuff forever. No one's held accountable for the $500,000 of equity that you lost if you would have bought a house in 2013, 2014, 2015 when people said the market's going to crash. Luke Jones, what's up from San Ramon? That's area where I sell houses. Luke, make sure you let me know personally if you know anyone that wants to buy or sell there. Paula from El Paso, Texas. Phil from Middle Georgia. Lisa tried to stop in last year, but was too early. I met you at one of your short-term rental events last summer, and you said stop by and say hi, so I did, but I won't. No stalker. You're not a stalker. Don't worry. Jimmy Wisecarver, what's up with you, my friend? Jimmy is, many people don't realize this, but he is actually the inspiration for the most interesting man in the world, the Dos Equis commercial. They ran into Jimmy one time and created an entire character after him. You definitely want to follow him on social media. Pat O is out in Queen Creek, Arizona. I know where Queen Creek is. I actually like that area. It's a growing spot. Sue is joining us from Miami. Luke said he grew up in San Ramon. That's cool. Chris Wilson from Boise, Idaho. Dude, I don't know. The market is wild. Boise and Coeur d'Alene have both been wild for a long time. Starter 179 says the biggest generation is now the millennials, and they're about 38 years old. Prime home buying age. It's not going to crash. Akeem Barras says Sacramento Bay Area under 500,000 is so competitive with a scarce inventory. Yeah, that's probably why Kyle was out there helping that client, because it is so hard to put anybody in contract. Very difficult. Jimmy, you say I'm the man, but we all know you are the man, and you're not only the man, you are the most interesting man in the world. It's been said that Jimmy Wisecarver doesn't do push-ups. He pushes the earth down. It's been said that Jimmy's tears can cure cancer, but it doesn't help anyone because he's never cried. It's been said that Jimmy cannot have a heart attack because his heart would never be foolish enough to attack him. It's been said that Jimmy can speak French in Spanish and that he is the life of parties he's never attended. It's also been said that if Jimmy punched you in the face, you would thank him for it and ask him to autograph where you were hit. Any one of us would be lucky enough to get punched by Jimmy in the face. And I'll just say, Jimmy, right now, you have absolute full authority to punch me in the face anytime you want. Just please let me know first so that I don't scream. Eileen Uwang says, hi, David. In your opinion, how will student loan payments affect real estate in October? Eileen, please, I always try to shoot straight with you guys, which means I always put myself at risk of somebody saying David was wrong. I just haven't been wrong yet. I've been blessed in that way. I don't think it will affect it whatsoever in any way. There's a thing where people they overthink the market, and data can be very intriguing in that sense, where you're like, the election's going to happen. And so I don't want to make a decision until after the election. Kyle, have you noticed that people will do that?
Yeah, especially around election time.
Have you thought of any time in your life that post-election anything changed? Like,
never.
Have you ever seen car prices went down after the election, or home prices adjusted, or interest rates changed? Like, I can't think of any significant effect that has ever happened once the president was elected. And so I think we overthink things like this. And so it's really a matter of supply and demand. Do people want to buy houses, and are there houses to buy? That's what you got to understand. Ryan Frankel says, I'm in LA, but I don't really want to invest here. I can understand that. It's still a good market to invest in for most cases. Ken Van Amaranjan says, pretty sure Tampa's blowing up here while I'm going my reserves and knowledge for getting my first investment property. But like you guys say, it's time in the market, not timing the market. Thank you. Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm. When Jimmy runs on the treadmill, the earth rotates, and that makes a day.
I like that.
Very funny. Jimmy's like the Greek god that's making the earth spin, right? Like, maybe there's some like old myth of the god that runs on a treadmill and it causes the earth to turn. That's him.
Jimmy's probably hyping me up way too much.
No, he said, I'll keep that in my pocket for a rainy day. He's going to go and he's going to cut out this part where he's being spoken about like a good man should. He's going to turn this into a highlight reel. And then every time he meets a young lady, he's going to share this with her and say, like, this is all that you need to know about me. We should all be so lucky as to have something like that in our back pocket.
Yeah, you can use it for any occasion. Somebody's mad at you. Hey, check this out. Somebody's happy with you. You're right. Let me show you this. Right? There's really no occasion when it wouldn't work to show the highlight reel, except
That's
maybe
a very good point. So maybe what I should do here is I should start a Cameo business where people pay me to say like a personal analogy just for them, or something like I just said for Jimmy. You know, I have very odd talents. There's many things in life I'm not very good at, like growing hair on the top of my head, or having clean eye features, right? Or growing a beard that doesn't look terrible. But I am pretty good at things like saying, if you were an animal, this is the kind of animal that you would be. Or what's another thing, Kyle, that you've seen me do?
Yeah, I'd say hyping people up, basically talk about how handsome they are. You do that for me a lot.
Well, your name means handsome in Hebrew. Like and look at you, man. Like
I don't think there was a Hebrew name of Kyle at any point. I think it's just somebody made that up in a Christian bookstore and sold it. So
no, it was probably like Kyle. And then it was translated into several different languages, like Kyle, right? That turned in, and that probably meant like good looking, rugged, or handsome. Then that was translated several times into how we say Kyle. And that's where it came from. I really think, like, I just saw, this is weird. Please don't judge me for admitting this, okay? I saw the name Tomas, and I realized if you just took the name Thomas, but you said it with a Hispanic accent, they would have pronounced that Tomas. And then we just changed the spelling to fit what Tomas looks like instead of Thomas. And that's where we got the name from. Now, many of you are smarter than me and realized this fact long ago that was obvious to you. It didn't click in my head until today how Tomas came from Thomas, because it would have been pronounced different, right? So like when you meet somebody in like from the Middle East and you say, how do you say that? And they had that huh sound in their voice. We just change it to remove the huh because we can't do that, right? So like, what's a word that you might think of, Kyle, that has that in it? Can you think of anything?
Phlegm.
Yeah, it has the sound phlegm. That's not going to work there. Like halal, right? Or something. We're like halal because that's what voice our mouth can make. Then we change the spelling to fit it, and then the English translation just becomes halal instead of however it would have been said. I don't remember why we started talking about this now. Do you?
You were talking about how we hype up people and the things you do to hype up people.
Yes. So I need to start a Cameo, and if any of you need a little highlight reel made of yourselves, like a 30-second thing that you could share with your wife or your girlfriend or a person interested in doing business with you, and you want to hear and you want them to hear how amazing you are, do it. I will also tell you, if you're an animal, what kind of animal you would be.
Yes, you do.
How come, Kyle, I don't like that your studio looks better than mine? It's darker. The lights are brighter. Mine looks whiter, and my blue light isn't enough. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Well, you look really bright today. I like the way it looks.
You like it, but I think you look better with darker.
Are your overhead lights on? Is that what it is today? Because yours
I can make them down, but the blue light behind me isn't as like powerful as the purple you have.
I have two lights back there. Maybe that's why. It's a little bit.
So I need to order a second light. You think? You don't think it's just that you have higher luminage?
I do have very high luminage. You got to ask Isaac though. He was messing around with it because he's actually the one that wants to be like a YouTuber and stuff. So he wants to set it up, and then he makes videos out here.
I would have him come do my studio, but he would sabotage it because he wants to be bigger than me.
Well, then he would, and then he would leave it in a certain way, and you wouldn't know how to like plug it back in and get it back to the settings.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, that's one of my pet peeves. I can't stand that. Like, touch the camera in my office and I freak out because I got to figure out how to try to zoom it back in. And I'm always like coming in to record 30 seconds before I'm supposed to be there. The whole thing goes well. Chris says the purple tone contrasts well with the green earth tone shirt. Yeah, that is a nice, like purple and green make a nice, like it's kind of like a cool, trendy Barney.
I like Barney too. Barney was somebody you could trust. He's a very trustworthy figure, and I want to be known as a trustworthy figure to the clients that I work with and serve in real estate.
A stoic rock of your childhood. How was your inspection?
Good. It was decent. It's 106 degrees outside, and when you do an electrical inspection, they tend to turn off the electricity, which means no air conditioner. So other than that, it was nice and hot. But unfortunately, I wasn't the one having to crawl around in an attic and a crawl space. So we are nice and hot here in Northern California.
All right. Yeah, in a crawl space, that's not fun. Walking around the parking lot in a tank top, though, absorbing all the sun's rays and getting my solar battery filled up wasn't bad at all.
Yes. So what are we talking about tonight here, David? I guess there's some lawsuits that have been going around. These have actually been going on for quite some time, right?
A couple of them are, and then one just came out, which I don't know if we have a video for, but we might see if somebody in the chat would like to come in and talk about it, where Dallas has outlawed short-term rentals. We don't want to be accused of misinformation, disinformation, or cisinformation, so I don't want to say anything without researching it. But this might be a good idea for us to look up an article on tonight's show and just share what happened and if this is a thing that realistically could happen in other cities, because this could cause a ripple effect that's nasty if cities start outlawing short-term rentals, which is just ridiculous. But if they do, you will absolutely see certain properties hit the market that normally wouldn't have, which would probably drop prices if we flooded the market with some more supply. But at the same time, you'd see a lot of people lose money. That would be pretty bad. If you buy a property with a plan and then the government changes the law on you after you buy it, that sucks. I can see them saying no additional short-term rentals. That's fair. But just to outlaw any that are already there would really suck.
Okay, I can definitely work on trying to find an article here once we talk about get the other things rolling. But for those of you who are new, the way this works is David and I are here just about every Friday night. We're talking about topics like this, topics about different lawsuits, different changes, different things that could affect the real estate industry, could affect you as a consumer, as an investor, as somebody that's interested in real estate or maybe runs a real estate related business. That's what we're talking about here every single Friday. And this is a call-in show, so you can actually text message the number below, 833-777-0309, and you can come in and talk. You can share about how these things are impacting you, how you think they might impact others, what you're seeing from your vantage point, or just ask a question related to tonight's topic. That being said, if you guys are getting some value out of this, do us a favor, hit the like button. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If this is something that you enjoy watching, you like learning from David, you like hearing what he has to say, hit the subscribe button so you can come back on a regular basis. So let's talk a little bit about tonight's topic. We're going to be talking a little bit about it's basically a real estate commission lawsuit. David, do you mind just kind of laying out just a quick little baseline of how real estate commissions typically work for buyers agents and listing agents here in the US of A?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, Kyle. For those that didn't know, here's how it works in general, and then I'll share you a little bit of behind the scenes information of what goes on in reality. And then I'll tell you about why realtors don't make as much money as you think when you just hear about the commissions. The seller will pay the commissions for both parties, and it's in the seller's best interest to do that, which I'll explain in a minute as well. The listing agent, when they get the agreement signed by the seller, which is a fight, it's a competition. You don't just walk in there and a seller goes, yeah, you can sell my house. They're like, well, what are you going to do that other people aren't going to do? Well, what's your marketing strategy? Like, you have to play this game with people who own the asset but don't know anything about how house selling works, but you kind of have to cater to them in this dance. And then other agents come in and they're like, well, I'll do it for cheaper, which is always what someone says when they're not good at something. If you can't be better, then just be cheaper. So it used to work like there's a 6% commission the seller pays, 3% goes to the seller, 3% goes to the buyer. Over time, you've seen too many people getting into the real estate space. My opinion is because Americans are starting to hate work and they look at real estate sales as being easy work. So more people go to it, and it goes to 5% now. And so each side gets 2.5% or even 4.5%. And when that happens, what usually occurs is the listing agent keeps more of it for themselves and they pay less to the buyer's agent. So buyer's agent commissions used to be 3%. Then they dropped to 2.5. Now, a lot of the time they're 2. Like, they just keep going down, even though the buyer's agents are typically doing way more of the work and it's way harder. The buyer's agents have to convince their clients to stay in the deal, not back out, feel good about it, negotiate the lower price. The listing agents have had the easiest job ever in most cases. That's the gist of how it will usually work. Now, what you don't think about when you're looking to buy a house is that you don't have to pay your agent anything as the buyer. And if you don't close on a house, that costs you nothing. What we usually think about is I just closed on a house. My buyer's agent got $10,000 on that commission. What did they do to deserve $10,000? That's what we think. Okay. Well, first off, let's say their cut was 10,000, which is a very healthy commission in most markets. It's usually not that high. 30% of that, maybe more, is going to go to their broker. Okay. So now they're going to be left with 7,000 out of that 10,000. Then they're going to have to pay for their licensing, the fees, other brokerage fees that they have to pay, marketing that they've had to do, the gas to drive you all around, a transaction coordinator to put the stuff together, whatever technology fee they have to pay to use the CRM and the software that they're using to managing. So now they're keeping less of that $7,000. Let's say they keep 5,500. Okay. It's still confusing and misleading, I should say, because you're only thinking about the deal that you did that closed. You're not thinking about the 20 buyers that agent worked with that didn't close. All the houses they went to show someone they didn't buy. All of the presentations they gave where the person decided not to move forward with buying the house. All of the conversations that they had, all the phone calls they had to make to try to find the buyer, all the open houses that they held, hoping they would find a client, all the times that you called them or someone called them to say, what's my house worth? What's the market doing? How do interest rates work? What's a VA loan? What's an FHA loan? How does a home inspection go? We have that conversation when we're talking to the agent, and what we think is, well, that's their job. That's just what they do. What we don't think is they're not getting paid for that. They only get paid on the 2% of people that actually go to closing. So even though that commission to most people seems really high, it's 10 grand, or they're getting to keep 7 grand, or even if it's 5 grand, that's what I make in a month. You're not thinking about all of the time and effort they're spending not getting paid. In fact, if you knew how the numbers break down, I don't know what they are nationally. I know what they are in my office in Brentwood. We have 100 agents that work here. On the roster, it's always right around 100. 50 of them, so half of them, sell 0 houses a year. They pay money to be in the brokerage. They pay money for a desk fee. They pay technology fees. They show up for training. They're trying to learn how the forms work, how the contracts works, how lead generation works, what to say, what not to say, how to work their database, all of that, and they make no money. Okay. Out of the 50, 30 of them sell between 1 and 3 houses a year. 1 and 3. Okay. So even on that $10,000 commission that people think that is so great, they're making 10 to 30 grand a year before they have to pay the broker splits, before they have to pay their licensing fees, their MLS fees, their lockbox fees, their local association dues, their national association dues, their state association dues. If they want to use DocuSign, they pay money for that. There's all these little like softwares that just nickel and dime you that you have to pay for everything. And that's not even if you have marketing expenses to get to your database. So 10 to 30,000 for the 30 people out of the 50 that sell homes. The other 20 people, so 20% of the whole office, sell probably between 6 and whatever we sell, 150, 300. I don't know what we sell. A lot of houses. Okay. Those are the ones that crush it. Really, the top 5% are the ones probably doing 95% of all the sales. It's very feast or famine when you're getting into this. Like Matt Helm here is saying, I got my license and realized it wasn't for me. It's much more difficult than people think. No shade at Matt. You just don't realize how hard it is, even when you have clients. But most of you don't realize that you don't just get clients. Most people get their license. They're like, I'm licensed. Now what? And the broker goes, assuming you even have a broker to talk to you, they say, all right, get out your phone. Pull up your contact list, start at A, call every single person all the way down to Z and tell them you're an agent and ask if they want to sell a house. And you're like, that sounds awkward. I haven't talked to this person in a long time. Yep. Figure out what you're going to talk to them about. Okay, well, like, how do I find someone I don't know? I'll go to the grocery store and talk to the person buying Captain Crunch and ask them if they need to buy a house. They're like, what? Go to your PTA, go to your kid's T-ball meeting and talk about real estate nonstop. It's kind of like saying, how do I find a girlfriend? And we tell guys, just have a conversation with every single person you meet, man or woman, and say, I want a girlfriend. Will you be my girlfriend? Or do you have a sister who wants to be my girlfriend? And just get rejected 100 times a day. And then out of those 100 times, you might get 2 or 3 that go, yeah, maybe I'll look into it. And then those people take all your time and you go on dates with women that you don't even know if they're interested with you or they just enjoy going on dates, hoping that that turns into a girlfriend. And most times it doesn't. And you do this for 4 months. And then finally you get one who's like, yeah, I'll be your girlfriend. And you have a girlfriend for an escrow. And then the worst thing is where this analogy breaks down. Once that escrow closes, you lose your girlfriend and you got to go find another one. It's like a fruit fly. You start all the way over. And while you have that girlfriend, by the way, you have to be saying to 100 people a day, will you be my girlfriend? Because you know that girlfriend, when the escrow closes, it's going away.
Jessica and your current girlfriend too. Hey, do you know any other girlfriends that I can meet as well?
Yes. And you don't want them to know you're also looking for another girlfriend because they want to feel like they're your only client. Mm-hmm. So when they call you at 7:30 and they expect you to answer the phone, but you're actually talking to the guy to see if his sister would be your girlfriend and you can't pick up the phone right there. And they're like, well, I have to put the kid to bed and you didn't take my call. You don't care about me. Like, it's insane. This is what everyone is doing as an agent. And yeah, when that deal closes, you see the very end of a huge funnel. You see the point of it. If you look, we have the sales funnel. It's like this really big pyramid. You see the very bottom of it. You don't see all the rest of it that's going on. Okay. It is an incredibly hard job. It's incredibly stressful. Most people that don't work in this job don't know what the stress of not knowing where your paycheck's going to come from is. Okay. Not only the stress of, is my client happy? Are we going to get the deal that I negotiate for them the most? And the stress of getting rejected every single day, all day. But now the stress of, what will I have money to pay my mortgage? Because you don't know where it's going to be coming from. All right. So that is the gist of what the commission structure looks like for agents and why commissions are quote unquote high. It's the same. I realized the same thing when I was a cop. Like, Kyle, did you know in the state of California that if somebody calls for an ambulance or other emergency services, you're not allowed to just be like, no, you can't have it because you don't have insurance, or you're not allowed to ride in the ambulance? Have to go, right? Mm-hmm. How many people do you think that call for ambulances in the total scheme of humanity have health insurance and intend to pay?
I don't know. How many?
See, what you and I think about is people that live in a house like ours, that go to public schools, that pay taxes. Okay. But when's the last time you called an ambulance to your house?
Never.
Never in your life. You haven't done it. You know, if you ask an ambulance driver, you know where they go to calls for?
Like nursing facilities would be my guess.
Nursing facilities when someone's dying. Yeah. Or more likely transit and homeless people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Every time a homeless person had a tummy ache, they just call for an ambulance. Okay. So a whole ambulance comes, and that doesn't mean that they never have a real medical emergency. I just don't know if I ever saw one in my whole career. Yeah. It's always my toe hurts, my back hurts. They're sleeping on the concrete. Of course, stuff is going to hurt, right? Sometimes they want to go to the rehab facility, but they don't want to walk because it's uphill. This is a real thing. We had a train station that was downhill from a rehab facility, and they would literally call for an ambulance because they didn't want to have to walk up the hill. I am not making this up. Okay. This is a normal thing. So 95 to 98% is what most firefighters and ambulance paramedics told me. Those calls are going to people that are transient, homeless, unhoused, whatever you want to call them. They don't pay their bill. Right. So the 3 to 5% of people that do have insurance, that's why your ambulance bill is 20 grand. 15. We're like, why the hell is it so expensive to get me that short distance? I'll just drive. I don't want to call the ambulance. It's because you're paying for all the people that didn't pay. Right now, real estate's the same way. No one pays their agents. When you guys want to talk to Kyle or me about buying in Sacramento or buying in the Bay Area or whatever, you're not saying, hey, Kyle's time is worth $1,500 an hour. David's time is worth $5,000 an hour. I'll give you $5,000 for an hour of your time. What you're thinking is, I just want the information. I don't want to have to pay for it. But if it sounds good, I'll use you as my agent. I just want dinner. If you just take me out, I'll make you my boyfriend. But you don't know that because you might be going to dinner with some other boyfriends too that we don't know about. And we're like, well, how much do I talk to you before I know if you're going to be working with another agent? It's a cutthroat world. The reason commissions are so high, I gave this whole speech, is to say you're paying for all the people that didn't close on the house. All the people that wanted to look at houses, ask for information, have us do MLS searches, call listing agents to ask questions, research the market, find out about loans, hold open houses to try to meet you, hold free meetups and events and lunch and learns where please use me as your boyfriend. You're paying for them when you're the seller of your house. But that's what keeps the machine going. Okay, because if Kyle has a house that he wants to sell for $800,000, he needs a person willing to buy it for $800,000. But the person probably doesn't have $800,000 in their bank account to pay cash. They're probably going to get a loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that person want to pay their own agent? What's 3%? $24,000 in commission to buy the house? Not at all. But what if you could borrow that money from your lender to pay your agent? Might not mind it as much.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. So for the sellers who are selling the house that are paying this unrealistic 6% commission type of a situation, it's a guarantee that you're going to get a buyer that will buy your house. And because the buyer is borrowing the money from someone else, they'll pay you more because it's not their money. They just want to know what the payment's going to be. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it leads to sellers getting more for their house because more buyers will write an offer because they have representation they don't have to pay for. You'll get more competition. Instead of your house just sitting there not selling, you'll get several offers. You'll bid the price up. The people are willing to pay the higher price because the money's coming from the bank, not from them. Ultimately, that makes real estate sell for more. Even though people criticize, I don't want to pay the commissions. Trust me, this is all Kyle and I have heard since the minute that we got our license. Why are commissions so high? Like that they would never want to go do the job. It ultimately leads to sellers selling their houses for more. There is a reason it has been this way for a long time. We are now at a point where there's a lawsuit going on that could forever change the way real estate commissions are structured. And I will turn it back to you, Kyle.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I have one question just on the analogy of the dating analogy. If I am the boyfriend, my client is the girlfriend, what would you call the market, right? Like I'm investing in this market or that market within the dating analogy. Is that like the religion or like what would that be?
Oh, well, let's see. What role does the market play? The market decides how likely you are to be successful and how much work you're going to have to put in it. Okay. So the market is your girlfriend's friends that are all either like, you got a great man, you should feel really happy about him. Girl, you better treat him good. We love your husband. Look how handsome he is. His name should be Kyle. Or he's a bum. He should treat you way better than this. He should be doing even more. Your girlfriend's friends can create a scenario where you got to work so hard to get like no return. You got to go to Steak and Lobster every single night. You're washing her car for her while she just sits in the house and like waits for you to get done so you can go do her nails for her. Like the market will determine how happy you are in that relationship.
I like that. A few people are saying Tinder. Some people are saying the baby. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways that you can shoot this. But that being said, let's jump into tonight's first video where we're going to break down a little bit about what this lawsuit is, what it potentially means, and how it's working. It's a class action lawsuit, I think is the right word. Or I don't know if it's a class action, but it's a big lawsuit, and we're going to dive into the ins and outs of it and then break it down from there. So let me go ahead and pull this up and get this going for everybody here. Here we go.
Covering both of these major commission lawsuits, both of which could wreak major havoc on the real estate industry. And unfortunately, this report has to do with the bigger of the two. So here's what happened. A federal appeals court on Wednesday denied requests from the National Association of Realtors, Anywhere, Keller Williams, RE/MAX, and Home Services of America to overturn class certification for a lawsuit that could ultimately lead to billions in commission reimbursements to home sellers nationwide, while setting the stage for a courtroom showdown. So many of you know what's going on, but there are millions of homeowners that are part of this class action lawsuit going after these major franchises and the National Association of Realtors, essentially wanting to get the commission that these sellers wanted to get the commission back that their agents paid a buyer's agent to bring a buyer for the house. And so these companies try to appeal the ruling so that they can deal with this in a different manner than a class action lawsuit, because there is truly some catastrophic outcomes. And I'm going to talk about that in this what I'm calling emergency episode, because I didn't plan on making this episode until this story just broke. So let me turn that off so it don't get interrupted. So here's what's going on. The report says this This means the long simmering and closely watched case known as Morrill after the lead plaintiff is likely headed to trial, though the district court has not yet set a trial date pending request from the defendants that some class members claim have already been solved through arbitration. So that's interesting. Some of these people that join the class action, it appears that some of their claims have already been resolved in arbitration. So this is just speculation. I'm not an attorney. I don't have insider information or anything like that. I'm just speculating based on the report. It seems like some of these sellers are saying, hey, I'll just settle. And some of this stuff is just getting handled through arbitration, which it appears, and it would make sense that these companies want to deal with this case in that manner. And here's why. This is the crazy piece. So a NARS spokesperson, Wes Shaw, this is what he said. He said, this decision from the judge does not impact the case and does not go to the merits of the case. We look forward to making our case at trial and are confident that we will prevail because pro-competitive, pro-consumer, local MLS broker marketplaces ensure equity, efficiency, transparency, and market-driven pricing options for home buyers and home sellers. And I agree, because I just don't see a world that if this thing gets to trial where the jury rules in the plaintiff's favor. And I'm going to get to why in just a second. However, there's some big things at stake. And so let me share one more piece of information that the story included, and then we'll break this thing down. So the story goes on to say, like a smaller federal case in Missouri, this is known as the Burnett. I've been following that case. It's the smaller of the two. Their suit seeks to have home buyers pay their brokers directly. That's what all these cases are all about, rather than having listing brokers pay buyer brokers for what the seller pays the listing broker. That case is already scheduled to go to trial on October 16th. That one's done. It's going to trial. Now, here's the part that makes me think potentially this doesn't get to trial. And there's some pros and cons to that based on what happens here. So here's what the report said. At the Morrill trial, okay, stick with me. This is the bigger of the two. Potentially millions of home sellers in 20 MLS markets nationwide can ask to be reimbursed for an estimated $13.7 billion in damages. Remember that number. If the court awards these damages, that figure could go up to as high as $41.1 billion, an amount attorneys for the defendants stressed in their petition is far more than the defendants' combined market cap, and therefore pressures the defendants to settle the above case. And it says a catastrophic multi-billion-dollar damage award. So I looked into the market caps of all these companies, and these are rough. These are not exact. Keller Williams is at about $2 billion. Remax is at $1.1 billion. Anywhere is at $1.1 billion. Home Services of America, $1.5 billion. So all in, the total valuation for all of these companies is about $6 billion. The challenge with this is, on one hand, they want to fight this. They want to go to trial, because I agree. I can't see them losing this case for reasons I will tell you in just a second. But if they did, it would bankrupt these companies. These companies would, I don't know how the payout would happen, how they would come up with this $41.1 billion. And so that puts a lot of pressure on these companies to settle. But to settle then has some unintended consequences. It does have downstream impact, because essentially by settling, everything in the real estate industry as a result would have to change. In that, buyer's agents would essentially have no representation. And here's my argument, and I'm sure this is going to come up in this case at some point. But if the case goes in favor of the plaintiffs and sellers no longer are paying buyer agent commissions and buyer agents or buyers are left unrepresented or having to compensate their own agent, another major class action lawsuit could potentially happen. Why? Because now you would have another potentially unprotected class of consumer, which now being the home buyer, and now them screaming from the mountaintops, listen, we have to go into these transactions unrepresented as a result of that first class action lawsuit. And that opens up a whole gaping hole of issues for the buyer, for the seller, for the industry, for mortgage lenders. And I just can't see a world where it's like you knock over this domino and then it affects this domino over here. I talk a lot about the Cobra effect, that this decision, not even knowing, makes a whole nother problem over here. Because if we live in a world where buyers are left to either A, compensate their own agent for representation, that's a debatable topic. Some people in the comments, I can already hear them, oh, it's worth it. And that's fine. And then the other argument is the buyers won't see the value and they won't compensate their own buyer's agent. And that's a debate for later. The challenge is going to be that the buyer finds themselves in a situation being unrepresented like they are today. And now that opens up a whole potential of risks, because the buyer is going to be feeling as though it's everyone against them, because nothing really changes, quite frankly, for the listing agent. And, for the seller, there are some arguments to be made that maybe that would be good for sellers, but maybe it would be bad too. And I've made that argument in other videos, such that if there are no buyer's agents potentially, or there's a lot less of them, that maybe as a result, another unintended consequence of this class action lawsuit potentially going through, now you knock out a lot of the agents that otherwise have been bringing the buyers with the best offers to these sellers. So that's the unintended consequence, because what happens now, as we all know, the sellers sign a contract agreeing to the commission up front. This is why I don't see this thing ever winning at trial, because the seller raises their hand, says, yes, I'd like to hire you, Mr. Listing Agent. Yes, I agree to pay you 5.5%, 6.5%, whatever the commission is, and go out there and sell my house. And that listing agent is going to do everything under her or his power to do just that. That agent goes out into the marketplace and they're going to secure the best offer for their seller. And in many cases, the best offer is coming from who? It's coming from another agent who's bringing the buyer. And so to argue that you want that to go away could be a potential downside for sellers. And how these sellers can have any chance of winning this, I don't see it. One, they sign a contract up front. Yes, I want you to sell my house. Yes, I agree to pay you this amount of money. Then an offer comes in from another agent at another company. Hey, we've got another offer. It's with another agent. And the seller, yet again, says, yep, that's fine. I like the offer. Because as we know, sellers aren't obligated to accept an offer. The seller says, yep, I'll accept that offer. Okay. Then we go through the entire process, the inspection, the appraisal. They get their closing numbers. They look at the closing numbers. They see it. It's black and white, fully transparent where the commissions are going. Half the commission's going to the listing agent. Half the commission's going to the buyer's agent. Yep, I'm good. Sign the closing documents, get a check, cash the check, never say a word, never have any issues. But now all of a sudden we want to go back and unwind all of that. I just don't see this thing winning in trial. But if I'm these companies, it's a huge gamble. Because if they lose, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you guys can help me out in the comments. But I don't see how these companies survive a potential $41 billion lawsuit when the total market cap for all these companies combined is $6 billion. I mean, I don't see a world where they don't all file bankruptcy to have to pay the damages in this suit. So we'll see. This is the most up-to-date breaking news. As we get more data on this case, we'll see if this thing actually gets a trial set or not, or if there's some type of settlement. And then the downside of a settlement essentially implies that these rulings are in fact justified. That the way a buyer agent is compensated today in the United States does need to change. And so that's the downside of settling and the upside of going to trial. But going to trial, upside you win, downside you essentially go out of.
You're muted, Kyle.
David, do you mind just giving a very brief recap of what he just talked about?
Yeah, he actually did a really good job, and I thought a lot of his concerns were the same ones that I had when I was listening to what he was talking. So what I didn't catch and what I've never caught is the basis that the sellers have for believing that they were somehow ripped off. I don't understand that. Maybe someone here knows more than I did. Maybe they caught it and I missed it. It sounds like they know that's BS and they just see there's a $44 billion opportunity here. And what person that sold their house, if you go to them and say you're a victim, do you want to be a part of a class action lawsuit, is going to say, no, I liked paying the commission.
Yeah.
It's probably the easiest class action lawsuit anybody ever had to figure out, right?
Yep.
But if the sellers are complaining for some reason that they shouldn't have had to pay the buyer's commission, they should have only had to pay their own agent's commission. And the law would then be changed to say the listing agreements only spell out what the listing agent will be paid. The listing agent would then market the home and the buyers would go directly to the listing agent. If you want to have your own agent to negotiate for you, you will have to pay it out of your own pocket. But it's kind of like, are you going to pay as much for your agent as the seller paid for theirs? You're probably going to pay less, meaning the attorney that you're bringing to this battle is not going to be as good. And you don't have a relationship with them. This isn't a person that you know, that you feel like you could trust. They're probably not going to be very good at what they do because you're not going to make nearly as much money at it. In general, buyer's agents are just going to disappear. You'll have like guns for hire. Okay. Most people won't do that. So they're going to go negotiate directly against the listing agent themselves and this is going to create chaos. Like I could just imagine you're a listing agent, you're representing your client, you're loyal to your client's paying you. They expect you to have a fiduciary to them. You do have a fiduciary to them. You don't owe anything to this person. Are you going to go to this complete stranger and say, hey, let me tell you how disclosures work. If we didn't put anything in the disclosures and you catch us, you can sue us.
No.
Hey, let me tell you how counter offers work. When you send an offer, we're going to counter it. That's just a way of knowing where we're at. No, you're going to tell them whatever makes your own clients benefit. And the more convincing you can be, the smoother you can be, the better of a slick talker you are, the more they're going to believe you.
Yep.
And it's just like when you go buy a car from a dealership, you don't ever beat the dealership. Even the person they assign to you, like, hey, this is Johnny, and Johnny's going to help you find a car. Johnny's going to be your friend. And I'm going to go to bat for you. Do you think he's going to bat for you? Do you think he's really going in there American Gladiator style against his boss and fighting for you who just walked into the car lot? They just know how to make you feel that way. You're going to get ripped off almost every time. This is how commercial real estate works. Did you guys know that when you buy commercial real estate, you don't get an agent? There's no buyer's agents for commercial real estate. There's a listing agent, and you are expected to know how that world works on your own. And if you don't, you shouldn't be playing in that arena. Yep.
Yeah, I think that there would probably be more lawsuits as a result of not having a buyer's agent, because there's going to be a lot of buyers that are going to say this listing agent led me astray. He or she didn't tell me this, or they didn't walk me through the process. And I can see more lawsuits coming as a result.
Until the whole process gets changed, where like there's a bunch of rules that are made that says this has to be declared and exposed. I don't know for sure. How I see this working out in my head is people say, F it, I'm just not going to buy real estate. They're going to hear about all the lawsuits. They're going to have questions that no one's there to answer. They're not going to trust the person selling. You're just going to get generations of people that don't ever sell homes. They just keep the house in the family and they pass it on to the kids, and nobody really sells it. And that is going to create a bigger problem that we already have for inventory. Or it will be like you only buy new home construction for the most part. The majority of sales become new home construction where you go and you buy it from the builder, which, guys, by the way, when you buy a home from a builder, this is already happening to you. You're getting ripped off every time. You don't know it because usually you didn't go get your agent first and bring your agent with you who understands how new home construction contracts work and how the sales work. I can't tell you how many people I've met that have been like, oh, we used the builder's lender and they gave us a credit. Like, no, they didn't. They just jacked your rate up higher than it would have been somewhere else and gave you a seller credit, which every single broker can do. But they made it look like they gave you a credit to make it easier to buy the house. And then they got you to spend extra money on a cabinet upgrade that you didn't need to spend because they were like, well, you're getting a credit of $15,000. Do you want to put that towards the cabinets and the countertops and whatever you have going on? It's like very easy to move money around when you just create things. Like lenders used to do this all the time. There's an origination fee, a loan fee, an appraisal fee, a network fee, a transaction fee, a mortgage fee. And they're like, well, we're going to waive this fee, but then they just add another fee with another name. You guys, no one knows how they're getting ripped off in these worlds. This would be very, very, very bad. Everybody hates agents. I understand it. You will hate real estate a lot worse if you don't have agents that are doing this. Now, if it was up to me and you said, David, how would you want to work the whole system out? I would say in order to represent people selling real estate, you need a degree. Like every real estate agent should actually be more like a lawyer. Like you have the equivalent of a law degree in real estate. You should understand how the escrow works, how the title chain works, preliminary title reports. You should understand what an APN is. You should understand the tax code. You should understand assessor parcel numbers, how real estate is valued. You should be able to explain to a client construction costs. Like you should be a lawyer to be doing this. And there would be way less people selling homes. You'd have way less of the soccer moms or the guy that sells car stereos and then also sells real estate too, who's just a good talker and gets you into being their agent and they're terrible. The whole thing would be better if we did that. You raise the bar for people representing.
If we raise the bar, would we then raise or change the way in which they're compensated? Would it be commission based at that point, or would it be like a lawyer, either having them on retainer or paying them hourly?
You would have a retainer and you'd pay them. And then what I would recommend is that what most people would do is they'd say, we're going to buy your house for $700,000. But we're going to give you $720 and ask for a $20,000 credit to pay my agent with, my lawyer with, my person with, right? So you'd still figure out a way to get the seller to pay for your representation. But if you didn't close on a house, you'd be on the hook for that money. And I think that it would stop buyers from jerking agents around. It would stop agents from running after, will you be my girlfriend? Will you be my girlfriend? Like just the crazy cold calls and door knocking and text messaging and insane follow-up. All the slimy parts of it would be taken out. You wouldn't have that. It's like, okay, I need services. And they'd say, this is what I charge. We can structure this to get the seller to pay some of it, all of it, or part of it. But if we don't buy it, you're going to pay this much. And then you would only talk to your agent if you were serious. You wouldn't just waste their time for 2 hours to learn about a market you were never going to buy in.
Especially if you were paying them for that time, you're going to be much more careful about how you use their time.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be like, hey, let's just write 500 offers and hope one of them lands when they're all really bad. It would, so you'd lose agents, but the agents you kept would be higher quality and you'd get better service from them because they're not getting jerked around. They're not running around saying, will you be my girlfriend, when they have no intention of actually helping you. And you would have to be more serious about going to look at homes. You'd only want to buy houses that you were actually going to buy. You'd also get a better representative negotiating for you, right? Because if you're not a good like you or me that can actually stand in the gap and fight, we'd be good at this. The really nice, friendly, high eye agents that are just like smiley and happy and make you feel good, but they wilt the minute there's a negotiation, they wouldn't make it in this market.
Cocktail hour agents, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, that the one that wears the fancy clothes and smiles and has their hair all done up and they're really gregarious and charismatic, but they don't know anything about the actual market and they're helpless. You'd get rid of that whole contingency of people. But the way this is going, it doesn't look like we're heading in that direction. Like we're dumb. It looks like these real estate companies are either going to go to court and fight. Hopefully they do, or they will settle. And the ripple effects of this settlement would be scary to me. Like, I don't know exactly how that would play out, but I heard about this lawsuit like 4 years ago, and I really didn't give it any thought. I'm nervous it's stuck around this long.
Well, and it seems to be progressing. It's making more ripples, like you said, and more movement. So it is going to be really interesting to see what plays out. Another point on to what you were saying about the lack of good solid agents out there is it actually makes it more difficult either for seller or for buyer or for both. Even when you have one side of the transaction where the agent is just not that good, maybe they're a little slimy, they're not communicative, they're lazy, they're whatever, because it makes it that much more difficult for the other agent to be able to communicate, because you just can't, that person's not giving you anything or not helping move things along. So you definitely, it would, if there was a higher level of expertise required or a higher barrier to entry, that would definitely weed a lot of the inexperienced ones out.
You probably lead to less lawsuits too.
Yeah.
A lot of lawsuits come from you jumped in with an agent, assumed all agents are good, realize you have a moron for an agent, but you're already in the escrow. You have to put up with that. And then when it closes, you're pissed. And then you get a lawsuit. Did you know, Kyle, that the majority of medical lawsuits do not come from incompetent doctors?
They come from basically like your expectations or your experience not being the way that you thought it would be.
Which comes from jerk doctors.
Yeah.
The jerk doctors get sued way more than bad doctors, because what prompts lawsuits is when your feathers get ruffled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. And I've also heard in physical therapy, the number one cause of lawsuits. If you had to guess, what do you think it would be, David?
The number one cause of lawsuits in physical therapy?
Yeah.
I would guess it was when the physical therapist damaged the person worse by asking him to do things that hurt.
It's actually burns. Like when they get the heat pads and all these things, they actually end up, and they don't check them.
They get busy and they forget to go back, and the person just lays there cooking.
Yeah, exactly. You're not supposed to, and it's just too hot. Like when you first take it out of the heating thing, you're supposed to let it cool and make sure. And instead, they just stick it right on the skin and burn the person. It's like a McDonald's lawsuit at that point.
These lawsuits are really irritating me about our country. Just they're so frivolous, and we just throw them around all the time. Like it says very clearly in the contract, and the person's argument is going to be, "Well, I didn't know what I was signing," but I mean, I don't know what you want. The paperwork we use as realtors is formed by the California Association of Realtors. We all use the exact same forms.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to personal responsibility for a lot of or for our entire nation, for everything, right? This whole student loan debt, not being paid off by the government now, and the Supreme Court turning it down. Well, the debt is still your responsibility. It was never anybody else's responsibility in the first place. You were the one who signed that promissory note promising to pay it back, So it definitely comes down to personal responsibility with a lot of things.
What do you think about this comment that came in from Starter 179?
Let's see. Starter says, David, would you agree that the MLS should be open to the public? That the way the brokers block the info is the problem. So I'd be curious on what information is actually blocked from the public. I know for a while, the buyer's agent commission was not public to the public. It was not, visible to the public. But like a year or so ago, that was changed, and now it's shown throughout the United States, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, that's gonna like drive the buyer's agent commissions down." I haven't noticed anything. I haven't heard any like ripple effect from that. I know that there's also what they call confidential agents remarks, which can be in there, but typically it's like, hey, don't let the cat out, and be careful. There's a dog in the backyard, but it'll be in the cage. Is there anything else I'm missing there?
I think what he's getting at is that buyers can see the properties that are listed for sale in the MLS, but sellers can't put their house on the MLS. I think he's saying that he sees, if you want to put your house in the MLS, you have to go through a broker, and he thinks that's a problem. So it sounds like he wants like this open forum where anyone can put their house on the MLS to sell it, so that they don't need an agent.
So there are some broker only, MLS only brokerages, essentially where you pay a very small fee, like $50, $100 to a broker, who will then put it on the MLS for you, but then they don't represent you. And then they put in the remarks, seller is representing themselves, broker is only here for the MLS only. And it's like $100. So there are services that allow you to do that. I've seen sellers do it. Again, they're usually, in my experience, they're not getting the top dollar. And they typically, when the market was super hot, they were getting good prices, but they still were probably leaving themselves very exposed. So I have seen people do that, but they haven't been successful with it.
That's from a practical standpoint. Conceptually, that would still be a bad idea, in my opinion, starter,
sure.
because it would turn the MLS into Craigslist. When you have to go through a broker, you now can create legal requirements of what has to be present in order to put a house on the MLS. So if the broker lies and says it's 2,000 square feet when it's only 1,400 square feet, there's a licensing regulatory board that can get them in trouble.
Yep.
If the broker, if somebody had a death in the family or a death in the house, I should say, and it wasn't disclosed and the broker knew, there's a person that can be sued. Like, the broker acts as a gateway to make sure that there is a standard of what to expect. When you take that filter away and anyone can just throw their house up at any given time, you don't know what the hell you're getting. There could be tax liens on the property that the title company like doesn't feel an obligation to look for, or maybe the seller of the house is like, yeah, you don't need to get title insurance or whatever. There would be like, I can see other potential problems coming up where the property is misrepresented.
Yep.
Right. Or there's no one to tell you that you need to get a home inspection. Like, when it goes through a broker, there's an inspection waiver that the broker has to collect that says, buyer, if you're not going to inspect this house, you need to sign this form saying, I know that I am choosing to waive it. If Joe Blow throws his house on the market and buyer doesn't know that an inspection is a thing that they can even get, to all of us, we think that's common sense. That is not common sense to the normal public that just wants to go buy a house because they turned 24 and they just got married and it looks like it's in good shape, right? Or their uncle went by and looked at it or something and it looked okay. Well, then the house has faulty foundations or bad electrical systems or something terrible. The people buy the house and find out that it's in really bad shape. Who do you blame? You're going to go after Joe Blow that put his house on the market? Like, your experience with Craigslist is never good. Your experience with the open market, like Auto Trader, is not good. You'd rather buy a car, even if you pay more, from a company that you know it's been through a certain inspection process and you're not going to be buying a lemon. And if it is a lemon, you're allowed to take it back. Yep. That's what having the MLS set up the way we have right now does, is it does create a little bit more money, but the trade-off is that you get a much safer product so people feel more comfortable buying houses in the first place. And then because we're buying them with money that comes from the lender, we don't mind as much. And then because the government secures loans through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and offers programs like FHA and VA and 5% down conventional loans, you don't have to put nearly as much of your money into buying this asset as people in other countries would.
In addition to that, the law is always evolving. The law is always changing, specifically when it comes to real estate related transactions, right? So here in California, we've seen that recently with fires, right? There's a lot of fire zones. And so Cal Fire and the state has come out with a law saying if it's in a fire zone in a specific area, the seller or the buyer is going to be on the hook for creating a defensible space. And that could be 10 to 20 to 30 to $50,000 worth of like clearing brush and cutting down branches and trees and limbing and all these things that the seller would not have been aware of. Sellers aren't following, the laws and the different requirements that are required when there's a real estate transaction, but brokers are being updated on a regular basis about these new changes, and they're able to make the modifications and send them down to their agents.
Yeah, the brokers are doing massive work to make sure everything is above board. And they don't make as much money either, because even though the agents have to pay the brokers, they get 30% of the deal or 20% of the deal, whatever. They then have to go rent the space the agents are in and pay for all the insurance. And like one of the things that Starter mentioned was that comps are not available to the public. The brokers have a monopoly on the comps. Well, that's because the sales were done through the broker who did all the work to make sure that the paperwork was in order and the right things were disclosed. And then they have to keep these records for a period of time in case there's ever a dispute. And they want to go back and like, let's look at the signatures to see if they were or weren't there, or what verbiage was in here in case there's a lawsuit. Yep. So because they're the ones that did all the work to represent it, that's their comp in a sense, right? There's nothing that stops you from just getting on the phone and calling all the people in your neighborhood and asking them themselves, what did your house sell for? But I don't think it makes sense to force brokers to say you have to make comps public, but you were the one that did all the work to do them. And you had to spend your time and your money to make it. What that sounds like it's coming from is this belief that we just shouldn't have to have agents, that if we could just get agents out of the way, the whole thing would be cheaper and easier. And it always sounds that way. until you have to go do it without them and you get ripped off for the first time. The first time I bought a house, I mean, I bought houses from wholesalers, but the first one that went wrong, I ran all my numbers on everything that I knew, and I bought this house that was 1,800 square feet, and I completed my BRRRR, and the price per square footage was exactly where I thought, and I would have got 100% of my money out until I realized it was listed for 1,800 square feet and sold to me for 1,800 square, but it was 1,300 square feet, and I paid cash for it, and the price per square footage was exactly what I thought, but was 500 square feet less, and there was nothing I could do. It was from a wholesaler. They don't owe me any fiduciary duty. They can put whatever they want on that thing. I had no recourse at all. That's what you get. You bought from a wholesaler. If you do this thing through the way we have set up right now, there's a lot of protections there. You could sue the seller for misrepresenting, sue the appraiser for not measuring, sue a lot of people for what went wrong and get your money back. This would turn into wholesaling. The whole real estate market will turn into what wholesalers are doing. Whatever a seller wants to say, whatever the agent wants to do, like, oh, it terrifies me to think about this. And there will be so many horror stories that people will just say, I'm not buying real estate, I'm getting out.
And that's why you see a lot of states outlawing wholesaling, or they're trying to outlaw wholesaling for that specific reason, because the consumer is not protected in that way.
Yeah. All right, we have another video to go over on another lawsuit here.
Yeah, we got one more to go over. Just a reminder, you guys, if we're seeing some great comments, thank you for that. But if you want to come in and actually talk about this with us, we'd love to hear somebody come in and hear what you have to say, maybe where you've seen this play out. But send a message, 833-777-0309. We'll get you on camera here. All right, we got one more video. This is very similar to the other one, but maybe a little bit of a different viewpoint. So let's take a look at this. And
if you guys knew how much paperwork the brokers have to make sure we fill out, it's legit this thick in a California transaction. I mean, like, if you printed it out, you would not believe me. In fact, it might be thicker than that if you actually consider all of the disclosures as well as everything else that has to be stored. Like, they need entire departments just to make sure that the forms were all filled out that were supposed to be filled out. Thousands of things are checked on every single transaction. We don't see that part. We look at a few things like the numbers, the rehab budget, the purchase price, the credits. It's like less than 1% of everything that happens is what we as either a buyer or investor look at. This lawsuit would threaten to destroy that entire system of protection that everybody's getting. And it would create a race to the bottom, which is, someone had mentioned, it would all be like Redfin. Yes. You would not have a represented professional, which, to be fair, most of them suck terribly. So that doesn't seem like a huge loss. But when you have a good one, it makes a big difference. That is explaining anything to you. You would have AI answering questions that some online brokerage created to say, like, hey, here's the form. This is how you fill it out. When it's filled out, email it to the seller. If they accept it, upload it here. We will review it with our AI and see if you missed anything. And that's what the process of buying a house is going to be like. It's going to be worse than buying a car.
Which would be really
Mike just said would be like the auto market. That's exactly right.
All right, here we go.
Let's talk about this NAR lawsuit. The STAR trials in October. And I cannot even believe that it made it this far. It's an Sherman antitrust lawsuit, which is about a group of homeowners that are doing a class action lawsuit against some of the biggest brokerages out there, Keller Williams, Remax, to name a few. And basically they're saying, hey, you guys owe us $4 billion because you've got the buyer agent commission being paid by the seller. And that's not right. The buyer's agent should not be paid by the seller. And so they're going out there and saying that, that the buyer agent commission needs to be reimbursed back to the sellers. And this is to me, just a off the wall argument. And I believe it's just just something that, you got these people that are trying to make a case. I don't know. Maybe they legitimately believe that they're owed some compensation here for this. Maybe they honestly, legitimately believe that in their mind. But there is a chance, and I think this is maybe even a greater possibility, that it's just people looking for somehow to make some money. That's what it sounds like to me. And how a judge is letting this through blows my mind. Because when we go out and we get a listing, let's say we take the listing for 6%. we take the listing for 6%, which is negotiable, by the way. The seller can negotiate whatever commission they want. And if they want to go, get a 4% commission from Redfin or, one of these, really low commission brokerages, they can do so. They can also sell it by owner. There's a lot of different options. They can do so many different things when it comes to this. Commissions are not set in stone. They are 100% negotiable. And so that needs to be made really clear, which is really clear, I believe. But the general public, they're just they just think real estate agents make all this money for basically doing nothing. That's the general consensus of, we're like real estate agents are above car salesmen in terms of, people that they feel are, snaky, snake oil salesman type salespeople, that industry. It's so crazy because it's nowhere near the truth. Real estate agents are incredibly hardworking people that are paid what the market, says that they're worth. This is market value. What we're getting paid is market value. If we were worth less, then we would get less. The market doesn't lie, ladies and gentlemen. It's like when you put a house for sale. If it doesn't sell, chances are it's overpriced. If you get multiple offers in an hour, chances are it was underpriced. So the market doesn't lie, and we need to listen to the market. And when the market's telling us is that we're worth 6%, some markets are different. Some markets, we get 5 most of the time. So, about half and half, 5 or 6, 50-50. Sometimes we go a little below 5 to make a deal work. But that's kind of the standard, and people are more than happy to pay that. Because they know what we go through, and they don't want to have to go through what we go through to get their property sold. So they're hiring us just they would a contractor to roof their house, or a plumber, or even a lawyer to handle a court case. Whatever it is, we are a professional that juggles so much during the transaction to hold everything together for our clients and make sure their best interest is there, and that they get the smoothest the smoothest perspective of the transaction. We kind of handle all the bumpy stuff. So nevertheless, let's say you go out there and get a listing for 6%. On that listing agreement, at least in my area, we have on the listing agreement where we mark how much out of that 6% we're going to pay the buyer's agent if in fact a buyer agent or a buyer comes along that's represented by another real estate agent. We're going to pay them out of that 6%. If we represent the buyer as well as a transaction broker, or however we represent them, if we bring the buyer and there's not another agent involved, then we're going to get the full 6%. And so you kind of look at this like almost like a contract, like subcontracting, whereas, a guy will go and sell a job to roof a house, right, for a certain price, and then he will pay a subcontractor to actually go out and do the work for a lower price, and he keeps the profit. It's really the same thing in essence when you think about it. But the difference in this and that is the fact that we're not subcontracting to someone who's doing all the work like the guy does when he sells a roof. We're still representing the seller and we're doing 50% of the transaction. And that's a whole nother conversation. When a buyer comes in and we represent both sides, or there's no other agent involved, we're doing twice the work now, because we're representing the seller, and we're helping the buyer, and we're making sure the buyer's taking all the steps that they need to close the deal as well, and helping them through those steps. So we're doing twice the work. That's something that isn't really talked about a lot either. A seller, hires us to sell a property. They're like, oh, well, if you sell it yourself, we're going to do 3%. We're going to do lower.
Can you stop that quickly, Kyle?
And that's fine. I do those deals.
He's making a great point. This comes up all the time. If you sell my house yourself, I only want to pay 4%, not 6%. This is a common thing that people fight for, because for some reason sellers always want to feel like they won the negotiation, so they're going to save. Can I just explain why this is a terrible idea and you shouldn't do it?
Yes.
If Kyle wants to buy, let's say that I have a listing, okay, and I agree to only get 4% if I represent the buyer and the seller, but it's 6% if Kyle brings his own person and he gets 3%. All right. Let's say that I'm selling this house and I have one of my own buyers that wants to buy the house, and Kyle has a buyer who wants to buy the house as well. if Kyle brings his person, then I only get to keep 3%. But if I bring my person, I would get to be 6%. Well, that is beneficial for me because now I can I know that I got my buyer a house, even though it's the same amount of work, whether I put him under contract with something else or I put him under contract with my own house.
Mm-hmm.
If I take one of my buyers that I was going to get 3% on or 2.5% on, and I sell them on my own listing, that I now only get 4% on, right? I keep 3% from the seller side. I only get 1% from the buyer side. So do you think I want to bring my own buyer to that house when I'm only going to get 1%?
No, you're not going to be as incentivized.
Hell no. I'm going to tell my own buyers, let's not buy this listing. Let's go buy another one that I can get a full commission on. Right. And I'm going to go to Kyle and get his buyer to come in and buy the house instead. But if I brought my buyer into that deal, I could have got the seller a better deal and the buyer a better deal. Because what people don't understand is it's not like the house is listed for 400 and it just sells for 400 or it doesn't. In today's market, you get multiple offers on every good house. I can get the buyer in to pay 450, or I can accept the offer of 400. How I play that game as a listing agent makes my clients tons of money, which is why I never feel bad about getting a 6% commission, because that extra 1% that they don't want to pay often comes out to like on an $800,000 house that saves them $8,000. I'll make my clients 50, 60, 70, 80 grand more if I am incentivized to get them every dollar I can. These agents that take these discount deals, they're like, all right, well, fine. That's what you want to do. It's like resentment. I'll just send you whatever offers come your way. You can pick it. I'll do what you say. You want to be the boss? You want to discount my commission? You'll never know as a seller how much money you're leaving on the table. And that's why we usually tell people, no, I'm not going to take a reduced commission because frankly, I just won't bring a buyer here. I'll take them somewhere else. And wouldn't you rather have me bring a buyer to your house and get them to pay more for it, which they don't feel bad about because they're guaranteed to get the home, right? I could go to my buyer and say, it's listed 800, but if you pay 880, we'll get it right now. And they'll do that because it's better than trying to buy 7 other houses and swinging and missing every time. It's just, that is a thing that often happens where people negotiate against their own agent thinking that they won because they're saving commission. And all it means is that now I'm not going to bring the good buyers to your house. The only person that we are going to do this with is some rando that walked into an open house that decided to buy your house. You probably shouldn't sell to that person anyway, because there's no relationship with me as the buyer's agent. They're probably going to come and ask for huge reductions. And what am I going to say? Yep. I'm not going to be able to talk them out of it because I don't know them. That makes sense?
Yeah, and Dave, I'm seeing a few people in the comments talking about like either they have bought their own house without a buyer's agent, or they know people who have and have been successful at it. And while that is a good thing, I know a lot of people that have done the same themselves. I don't think there's necessarily anything inherently wrong with somebody representing themselves if they know what they're doing. What we're talking about here is not just investors buying houses. We're actually talking about all buyers across America. And if you were to take all buyers across America, I would say if you had to throw a number, 90% of them are all going to be people who have little to very maybe 95% experience buying houses. So
and we're also talking about primary residences. This would not, no one does this with investment property. That is a completely different class. No investors are going to go in there and pay 80 grand over asking price in most of these cases, especially if it's a cash flowing rental. We are talking about either house hacking or primary residence buyers who need to get a house because their rent is going up all the time, that are not financially savvy. Not the person, like I heard someone in the comments there say, well, I went to a for sale by owner and did it myself. Like, oh, well, you're good. You understand real estate. You're listening to YouTube live on a Friday night. You're reading the books, you're hearing the podcast, and you understand the property cash flows, and you found something basically off market. That is not the person who just has no idea how real estate works and they're trying to get a house at all. Those are the ones we're talking with, because to be frank, guys, if I had a listing and I'm telling that seller I'm going to get him as much money as possible, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not bringing it to Angela or Donald or Jessica or Starter or Rob. I'm not going to you guys to get my seller the most money possible, because your expectations are that I'm going to help you save money.
Yep.
Right? So like, you're not the avatar of person that we're talking. Yeah, you guys can go directly to the listing agent in some cases, and you may be okay. It's not the same thing as when we're representing a seller in a hot market, trying to get them as much money as possible.
In addition to that, I've had some investors find their own deal off market. They brought it to me and said, "Kyle, will you represent me? I will pay you out of pocket your buyer's agent commission because I still want to be represented. I still need your help doing all the paperwork, going through the disclosures, figuring things out." So you can do that sometimes too, where you pay somebody, you pay a buyer's agent to represent you on an off market deal if you feel like you need that representation.
Yeah, we do have people that do that sometimes with us. And that we like that because there's actually, if it's off market, what that tells me is that there's not multiple offers, which tells me we have the leverage, which tells me I can use my skills to save you money and I might save you more money than you're paying me.
Yeah.
Versus when it's on market and there's multiple offers, there's nothing I can do to save you money. I can prevent you from buying a bad deal. I can advise you on ways to know if this is a good purchase or not. I can explain it. I can smooth out the bumpy process, but I can't literally save you money if there's 7 people lined up behind you willing to pay more than you.
Yeah, good point. All right, let's keep going here.
All the time where I take less if I represent both sides. I'm perfectly fine with that. But the fact of the matter is, you are doing twice the work in those scenarios. But, let's break all this down. Number one, the commission is completely negotiable, right off the jump. If you want to pay less, pay me less, right? If you think you can get it done, at this level of service cheaper, go for it. Be my guest. And then on top of that, it's disclosed right there in the listing agreement that I'm going to pay the buyer agent this much if in fact the buyer has their own agent that's representing them, which, by the way, is a very good thing to have a buyer's agent representing them on the transaction. And so I just think this is kind of crazy for them to come out and say it like this, because the seller's willing to pay X amount to an agent to get their house sold. What that agent does with that money, if they need to pay out to allow the buyer to have their own representation. I mean, listen, when you really break it all down, it's almost like the listing agent is paying the buyer's agent commission, not the seller. The seller already agreed to list it for 6%. They've agreed to pay a commission to the listing agent regardless. And by the listing agent going out and paying, they're really the ones paying the buyer agent. The listing agent makes less money, not the seller in that situation. Seller makes the same amount of money. They're paying 6% regardless, right? The listing agent's actually the one losing because they're giving half the money up to a buyer agent. This whole argument is wild. But let's think about this. In other countries like Australia and in Europe, there's no buyer agents. They don't have buyer agents. And, they go out and list properties and the buyers are unrepresented in most cases. What good is that? That to me, that's not really great for anybody, for the buyer especially, but then again for the seller, because you have this unrepresented buyer that, may make some decisions they wouldn't have made if they would have had counsel. It doesn't make sense if that's the direction that they're going in. Again, I think this could possibly be just a way for some people to make billions of dollars. But if this were to go through, which I think chances are probably zilch, but I would have thought it would have been zilch to get this far. If it does go through and say we do turn into a country where there are no buyer's agents, I mean, that would flip everything upside down. Everything would change. Commission structures would change. But my question would be, is if that happened, would we still have buyer's agents? And would they just get paid from a different source? Would it technically be someone other than the seller, but actually behind the scenes, it's actually the seller? Like, in other words, will we have new lending regulations that allows for the buyer agent commission to be figured into the loan, right? That's something that could happen where, the buyer agent now gets paid and it looks like it's coming from, out of the closing costs or something, but it's really technically probably coming from the seller because, the buyer's paying more. Listen, the whole thing is wild and it's something to watch. I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think it's going to be very interesting, but whatever happens, let's just say worst case scenario. Remember what I always say, worst case scenario. Imagine what that is. Imagine yourself crushing it during that worst case scenario. And then if worst case scenario doesn't happen, you're really crushing it. So let's just say worst case scenario, buyer agents go away. right? Buyer agents go away, and let's say commission comes down on the listing side too, because for whatever reason, let's say it goes down to 3% total on the listing side. I mean, this is like out there in space. This is alien talk, thinking that could possibly happen. But let's just say that's very worst case scenario. Okay, let me go out here and be the greatest listing agent ever known to mankind, right? I'm going to go out here and list properties, which is what I focus on anyway, and what everyone should be focused on. But I know there's a lot of people who are strictly buyer's agents. That's okay. Listen, in that worst case scenario, I mean, I believe we live in a world where buyers are still represented. Okay. So let me just make that clear. But in the worst case that buyers aren't represented for whatever reason, you have to be flexible. You have to be agile. You have to be willing to say, okay, this is what it is now. How can I fit into this equation and make the very best out of this situation and go out here and crush it? And honestly, when you look at this, listing agents, I don't see anywhere in the mix where listing agents are going away, right? So listen, why don't you take the time for the next 12 months to become the most amazing listing agent that you can possibly be? Develop those skills now. And guess what happens? Even if worst case scenario doesn't happen, right, and everything stays the same, now you're still the most amazing listing agent out there. And so that's what I think you guys need to focus on. If you're a buyer agent, then I think you should, transition into being a listing agent, and not just a listing agent, real estate agent. You help anyone buy and sell real estate. If they want to buy, great. If they want to sell, great. That's the name of the game. For me, I never classify myself as a listing or a buyer agent. I'm a real estate agent who is here to help anyone buy and sell real estate. So anyway, with that, I'll let you guys.
I don't know. Well, did you have anything you want to say there, Kyle?
No, go for it.
I agree with him about, it's funny because I've never talked to Ricky or the guy before, but our minds both went to the same places. So that tells me I'm probably accurate. I don't know that I agree that this is aliens out in space that we would get rid of buyer's agents. I think if this lawsuit wins, that is exactly what I would expect to happen. You are going to see buyer's agents disappear. Companies are going to disrupt the industry by saying we will help you represent. You'll have some VA in the Philippines or India that talks you through how to write your offer, and they'll have a template that you use to fill out and follow MLS instructions. All of the how many real estate agents are freaking licensed right now, dude? Like
everybody and their grandma.
Yeah, I think there's 180,000 in Keller Williams. So like how many there is in the whole thing, I couldn't even say. They're all going to flood into trying to get listings. All right. So that's going to create a race to the bottom. Now it's not a 6% listing fee. It's not a 3% listing fee. It's a 1% listing fee. It's a 0.5%. It's a flat listing fee for $500. Like you're going to have your experience as a real estate agent. And you're like, well, I have to make money at a coffee shop, but I'll do your listing for $500 because I remember how to do it. Mm-hmm. It's going to become a race to the bottom. Now, the sellers that are savvy, that can negotiate for themselves, are going to win. The sellers that are not savvy are going to get smoked. All of these jobs of real estate agents will probably disappear into nothing. Where are they going to go? You're going to have different industries where all these people fled into. They're all going to start go sell cars. Well, that's probably going to be turned into a thing where you don't have car salesmen. It's going to be like Tesla for most places. You order the car, you go pick it up. There's no haggling. Mm-hmm. Like, I know I hate to be doom and gloom. I didn't plan to go here. This paired with AI taking away jobs, paired with like a lot of other jobs leaving, like truck drivers, we're not going to need you. We're going to have self-driving cars. Yep. A lot of things like that is going to create massive unemployment. It's going to lead to a universal basic income because people are going to need to eat, and that's going to usher in socialism. And I don't mean to be like, if this thing passes, we become socialistic, but guys, we've been saying this for a long time. Take advantage of capitalism while it's here. Do what you can. Like Ricky was doing his best to try to paint a positive picture when he says, we'll just go be the best listing agent in the world. Think about that. Okay. Let's say that Kyle does go become the best listing agent in the world and he goes and takes all the listing. What happens to the other 700 agents that used to get deals out of that market that can't because Kyle gets them all? It's not like we can all go become the best whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to see people pushed out of the industry. You're going to see them now competing for other jobs, which could bring wages down even as inflation is going up, right? It's in general, this trend of let's get rid of jobs scares me more than I think it does other people. And I know the counter argument to this is people saying, well, David, we'll just create new, different jobs. Not anymore. That was an argument that worked before AI. AI does people's jobs for them, right? Like, well, we don't have as many of trades anymore, but now we have computer coding jobs. Yeah, AI can learn how to code much easier than it can chop down a tree, or it can fix a carburetor, or it can what are the other jobs people I have, like cut the grass or fix the sprinkler system. Like you can't leverage that job onto someone else, but you can leverage the types of jobs that everyone's been flocking to. You know how many people want to be influencers right now? I'd say that's like the number one job for Generation Z. Is that what we're calling them?
Gen Zs.
Gen Z. Yeah. They all want to be influencers. Like they hate manual labor. They hate any form of anything that doesn't give them massive dopamine hits and make them feel important and famous and also be easy. You know how easy it will be for AI to take over influencers? Just like you guys are all watching me on YouTube Live right now. Do you think in 10 years, in 5 years, that they won't have a system that says, based on everything David said, this is how he would respond to this article?
I think they already do that.
Yes. You could ask ChatGPT, answer this question in David Green's voice, and it will do it. It will say it the way I would say it. It knew. Brandon looked it up and it said, what kind of an animal would David be? I actually asked him to. And I hated the answer. It came up with owl because I appear wise and have a lot of analogies that I could come up with quickly. Like it knew people talk about me that way. You easily could be looking at a fake face and a deep fake on the voice and listening to someone talking and thinking it's me. They don't need me anymore.
Yes.
And that is much more likely to happen than we're going to create a whole bunch of new jobs and like give everyone a new thing. So I didn't mean to take it here. But I would just say to everyone listening, the takeaway from this is take advantage of capitalism while you can.
So let me ask you this. We got a caller coming in here in a minute, but I know you don't want to be doom and gloom. And what we hear Ricky saying is, hey, go be the best agent you can. Go, be an all-around agent, build the skills, whatever. What do you say to people then who could be squeezed out of an industry, or people who are facing replacement at one point, either by AI or by lawsuits or anything else?
It's a comfort zone issue. First off. Okay. Like most of us don't like doing a job that doesn't feel natural for us. So if you like analysis, you like to sit at a computer and look at a spreadsheet. If you like people, you want to be a real estate agent and attend cocktail parties and just talk on the phone. And you don't want to have to learn how the law works. But if this happens and jobs rapidly either go away or change to something new, your skill to learn something new becomes incredible. Like that's a skill in of itself. It's not, do you have the skill of fixing a tire? Do you have the skill of coding on a computer? It's, do you have the skill of learning a new skill? And that's what I would be telling everyone. To be in their position, learn what influence is like, learn how the human brain works. Learn yourself to where you can pick up new things quicker and you don't get irritated when you have to do something new.
So be adaptable. Very
adaptable. Like the skill of adaptability is going to become the most powerful thing that anybody can learn.
Yeah, that's really good. All right, we have a guest here, Paula from Orlando. Paula, what's on your mind tonight?
Hey guys. Thanks for having me again.
Hi, Paula.
Welcome back.
Okay, so as a realtor, I have a feeling that there's like a crusade trying to take us out of the picture.
Yeah.
But the fact is that last year, for instance, most searches and from buyers and then people looking to list their homes started on the internet. But then 86% of real estate transactions run through realtors. So as much as they try with AI, there's still that people factor that buyers and sellers need. It's my opinion, of course, but I do believe one of the other lives that I joined you guys, we talked about excellence, right? Achieving excellence. And as realtors, also, I believe that we do have the duty of improving our skills. And like David said, we become like lawyers. We know so much that we make the clients realize that they don't need us just to receive an offer or to make an offer, because that's the easy part. But throughout the whole process, all the advice that we can give them and how we can guide them through the process so it's not as stressful as we all know, buying a house is. I think we have a lot to
let me give you my 2 cents on how I think realtors can stop people from crusading against them. First off, I'd be okay if 60 to 70% of realtors got out of the business. I think, Paula, you could agree.
Absolutely.
We hate them just as much as you guys do, because we have to work with the incompetent morons that don't know anything and are trying to learn their job, and they're trying to pretend like they don't know anything. And they're horrible. We're also competing with these people for business and then helping them through the transaction to do their own job because they're not good. We have too many of them, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I realized the other day. I was talking to a lawyer about restructuring a business, and I hate talking to lawyers and I hate paying lawyers. Does anybody like lawyers? They're like, yes, this is great. I'm excited. I get to go pay 10 grand to have a person write me a document that, like, I feel like I could have got a template on LegalZoom.
Yep.
Okay. However, when we had the talk, he brought up specific scenarios that I never thought of and asked me, what would you do if this happened? He also taught me about corporate structures in a way that I didn't know. So, like, after this talk, I walked away understanding, and some of you probably know this, but many of you don't want to admit you don't know it either. Jimmy Weiscarver will probably admit he doesn't know this because he's a humble, honest man. But like, they're structured where the shareholders are the people at the top that make the decisions, and then directors are elected, and then officers are chosen by directors. Now, everyone nods their heads like we've heard those words before. I bet the majority of you did not know that there was 3 pieces to every single corporation and how they all interacted with you. I didn't know what I heard the word director. I didn't really understand what it meant. I know that the CEO is the ultimate person making decisions compared to the COO or the CFO, but I didn't understand that they're chosen by directors, which are then also elected by shareholders. And I didn't understand that you could all play, one person could play the same role in every single company. That was a very valuable conversation that I walked away going, oh, this is way more simple than I thought. Now I understand how companies can be valued. You divvy up how many shares that actual corporation has. I didn't know that. When I formed an LLC, I didn't realize that I was creating shares of an LLC. I'm the only person that owned it, right? It was really good to have that person explain it. And now I didn't mind paying the $10,000 for the phone call that I had. I think that's what realtors need to do. Yeah,
Yes.
people don't like you because they think you're worthless, but can you explain something they wouldn't have thought of? Like, imagine, Paula, that you could sit down with someone and go over the roof report and explain to them what a soffit is and what fascia is and a roof ridge, and like make it make sense to them. Or if you even had like a little thing you could show that showed all the parts of a roof and say, this is what the roofer's trying to say. Now they don't hate you anymore. Now they start to like you, right? That's my advice for if you're in the industry at all. You're a loan officer, you're a real estate agent, you're a title officer, you're anything. Get better at explaining to people what they're doing and how it can help, and they won't hate you as much.
Yes. Added value comes down to that.
Let me share one other thing too of why I think it's going to take longer. I was actually talking to our Spartan League members about this last night. Why I think it's going to take longer for AI to replace real estate agents is not because AI won't necessarily be able to educate people better than real estate agents, because I think it can probably do that pretty quickly. I think it's actually because of the government, right? The government is involved in so many transactions, whether it would just be like permits and looking up permits or simple things like, I don't know, like city, county transfer tax fees or whatever. I think their systems are so old and so archaic. It's going to take a while for the government to be able to implement AI that can talk to real estate related AI. So I think it's going to take a little bit longer than we think.
I hope so. I do.
This is where I've also told all the people in our companies, they hear it from me all the time. I'm more concerned about AI than most people are. Okay. When you become a business owner, or like Paula, you are, I believe you're like self-employed, like you run your own business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've learned this just by necessity. In the Pillars book, I talk about one of the ways to make more money is to take on more responsibility. The more responsibility you take on, which everyone hates, we're always like, make someone else do it, make someone else. I don't want to have to do it. I want freedom. I want my time back. I don't want to whatever. You grow through taking our responsibility. Every parent here is not in their head like, yep, I get it. The same thing happens when you take over a business. What you realize is there are two parts of every job. And Gary Keller was the first person that said this, that I got it. He said, every real estate agent has, or every salesperson has two jobs, their chosen vocation and lead generation. And it hit me like, your job is not to be a real estate agent, which is filling out a form and uploading a thing and clicking something in the MLS. Like, that's what everyone thinks a job is. Or a loan officer. My job is to collect documents and run calculations and match a loan program. And that's what they think their job is, because they always worked a W-2 where someone else did the lead generation.
Right.
You got a job at McDonald's, you didn't worry about anyone walking in the front door. Your job was to make the fries or work the system that someone else had. Okay.
You still make
AI will what's that?
You'll still make the money if you work at
You
McDonald's.
make the money, exactly.
Whether
You
people
actually
come in or not.
That's correct. So you don't have to think about lead generation. You're privileged, right? Take that. You're privileged. You have your W-2 privilege of not having to worry about getting clients. So what happens is people assume that the X's and O's of the job, that's what I call it. You could also call it operations. You could call it fish cleaning instead of fish catching. That is their job. And that's all they want to do. And if you ask them to do anything more than that, they're resentful. We all know what that's like. Like, you have the listing agent that wants to collect the commission and they fill out the forms, but you ask them a question and they're upset. They don't want to talk to you. Or the buyer's agent doesn't want to explain it. Or the loan officer that's like, why do I have to tell you this? Just give me what I'm asking for. I'm not going to explain it. I don't want to go over the disclosures for you. Just read them, right? Email me if you have questions. And then they want AI to answer the email so that they don't have to. That mindset, those will be the people that will go down, because AI will replace those parts of the job. AI will be able to go through a DocuSign and see if you missed anything. It will be able to go through for the loan officers and ask the client, I see that you haven't submitted your bank statements. Can I get that? Right now, that's a part of their job that they think is their job, is just to call Paula and say, I need a bank statement. And like, when they get the bank statement, they like pat themselves on the shoulder. I'm done. I did my job. No. What's that?
David, do you think that that personal factor, that people factor has or makes an impact on this whole on whatever is going on? Do you think that at some point they will be able to avoid that and really move us out of the way? I feel like this is a people business. We need each other. I mean, we need
the point I was getting at,
that.
Paula, is they will move you out of the way if you only do the X's and O's.
Okay.
If you are the person that can explain to the client what their options are, what you would do, like, AI can't replace your experience. AI can't listen to them and understand their tone and know what their concern is, or interpret what they're saying and come up with an answer. So those people will do better. But that, in my opinion, that's like only 20% of the performers. That's the top 20% of my office that sells the homes. The 80% beneath them think their job is just to fill out a form or get the bank statement turned in. That will be replaced by AI. So as everyone's listening and we're trying to figure out, like, what do I do? Get over yourself presenting, having to talk to people. Get over yourself feeling like you're intruding on my time. I remember I had an agent in my office that said, I just want a client who's transactional. I don't want him to have to want to talk to me all the time. I was like, well, then you can be replaced by a computer really easy.
Very quick.
Or a VA in India, if that's all you want, right? That's dangerous to be thinking that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you get excited, Paula, when you call Chase Bank or something and they put you through a phone tree and you have to click the right button as to listen to the thing, and then they finally like try to get AI to talk to you, and then after 25 minutes of that, you're like screaming representative, and then you finally get a person and they have an accent and you're just so angry because they don't understand, right?
So that doesn't happen.
No one loves that.
Alone?
Yes. That happens to you. Yes, you just want to talk to a person, right? So why are all of us so excited to have AI come in and replace parts of our business so we don't have to do, so we can give everyone that experience?
I think it's a great tool, but you can't abuse it. You gotta still develop your skills and work on your business.
They're different skills, though. That's my point. Don't develop your skills of collecting documentation, filling out a form, checking a box. Develop your people skills. Develop your problem-solving skills. Develop your understanding of how human brains make decisions, right? A lot of the information that I teach agents has nothing to do with the forms. It has everything to do with psychology.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, there's go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'm looking forward to see you here for VPCon. It's in Orlando, so I'm really excited about that. Hopefully I get to meet you in person then.
Yeah, I would love that. You're in Orlando, right? That's where you live. Entonces, dime más, ¿cómo está el market en Orlando? ¿Hay muchas personas que están viviendo ahí todavía?
I'm impressed. Yes. Population is growing and we do not have enough inventory. But there's very good opportunities for investment properties. We have a lot, very affordable homes or apartments that could have a lot of potential for investment. So it's moving nicely. I can't complain.
Can I give you a compliment?
Absolutely.
I was just telling everyone, work on your people skills. Okay. I spoke in Spanish, which everybody listening doesn't know what I said. Had you replied to me in Spanish, they would have all felt like, okay, why am I here? But you chose to reply in English, which kept the audience engaged and made me look good, right? That's a people skill. This is why you're good at selling homes, because you're aware of how other people would receive you, and that is a valuable trait to have.
Thank you. You did that yourself. You made yourself look great. But these people on the live are my friends. They are here on Friday night with me watching you guys.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock right now. And you're hanging out here talking real estate.
Absolutely. They're my friends.
Well, thanks, Paula. It was very nice to have you here. And I do look forward to meeting you in Orlando as well. Make sure we get a picture.
Oh, I would love that. I'll look for you.
Thanks, Paula. See ya.
Bye, con Dios.
Bye. Adios.
Yeah, this is all really good stuff and a really good point. I think Paula I've never worked with her, obviously, but she seems like a really good agent and somebody who has the best interest in mind just for her clients and based on all the comments she's put, and then obviously her contribution to this show. It's awesome.
Yeah, frankly, if we could get rid of the 70 to 80% of agents that have no business doing it, and all we had was Paula's, people wouldn't be on the crusade to get rid of agents that we've been talking about.
Telling you, man, this is so true.
Angela says that was a great compliment, and I agree. Thank you, Angela, for throwing some. What's the opposite of throwing shade? Throwing sun? Can I make that a thing? If I start saying throwing sun, will that go viral, and everyone will give me credit for it?
Yeah, that's really good. It's kind of like getting somebody's light to shine.
Yeah, and it's better than saying rizzed up. Like you guys have seen my word of the day on Instagram that I start saying like these phrases need to die. Getting really tired of hearing Riz. Like, it's just embarrassing at this point. So yes, Angela, thank you for throwing some sun at Paula's way, and then Jimmy pointing out that I'm hyping another fan. And she didn't even have to pay for it on Cameo.
This is all good stuff.
What do you guys think? Should I have a Cameo account? Let me know in the comments. Should I do one, and what should I charge? I'm curious what people think my perceived value would be before we get out of here.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know what Cameo is, it's basically an app or a website where you can basically pay a fee to some celebrity or influencer for them to make a video about something. So if like your aunt's birthday is coming up, you could have David create a video saying, "Happy birthday, Aunt, whatever your name is, Aunt, Florence or whatever. I just wanted to say you're the awesome person," and then David will hype him up. But yeah, let him know if he should get a Cameo account. That'd be kind of cool.
Or I could start a business and we're going to call it Only Cams.
There might already be one out there. I have a feeling.
That's true. I always come up with the idea after everybody else already had it.
You may have just demonetized this video right here. We may have to beep that out.
Angela, Only Cams. No, I don't think the algorithm will catch it.
No,
because they use AI to scan for stuff like that. Let's have Angela come on next Friday. When we figure out what we're talking about, we'll have Angela Haydorn come on, and then I will come up with what animal she would be in front of everybody.
Okay, let's do that. That'd be fun. Angela, send me a message on Discord and remind me to get you here on the live. That'd be fun.
And if you guys are in Spartan League and you want me to tell you what animal you would be, You're in the family. So you send me a message on Discord and I will come up with an animal for all of you. Just know that you're doing that at your own risk, because ChatGPT called me an owl, which isn't exactly cool and masculine. So I can't guarantee that you're going to like it. There's Paula. An owl is a great animal. It's associated with wisdom, and that's about right. See, women always say the nicest things like that. But Kyle, if I said you were an owl, would you be like, that's great? Or would you be like, why couldn't I be a falcon?
Yeah, I'd want to be like a transformer if that was an animal. Something cool.
So you could transform into any animal.
Yes. Yeah, but an owl, not so cool, unfortunately.
No, you want to be some kind of like lion or wolf. It definitely has to be something. Men are very sensitive about these things. If you're like, oh, you're like a giraffe, you're just like, I'm going to crawl in a hole.
But giraffes are sweet, David, and you're sweet.
Or people always say like, you're like a big teddy bear. I'm like, no, I'm like a grizzly bear and I'll eat your face. Don't call me a teddy bear.
Yes.
Women don't realize when they call us cute that we don't actually feel good about that.
My son came up with a good point though. We were talking about like what superpower you'd want, and he's like, I don't get it, because everyone always says they want to fly. Like if they could fly, that'd be really cool because they could get places faster, or like invisibility. He's like, but honestly, he's like, why don't you just get teleportation, because that pretty much covers the flying and it covers the invisibility, and you get a 2-for-1. I'm like, that's a pretty good point. Might as well just teleport.
Your kid is way too smart for his age, man.
Yeah.
He's having deep esoteric thoughts at like 11.
Yeah. Which I love.
All right, Isaac, if you're listening to this, thanks, buddy. Miss you.
Awesome. Well, I think this has been a very good conversation, and I'm curious to see what other people think about how this is going to impact. Where do you think people should go if they want to interact some more with you? I know there's the text letter. I know you're on Instagram, but where can people go if they want stuff between the Fridays?
That's a great point. I now have a system set up, I believe, on davidgreen24.com where you guys can chat with me. It's probably not going to be used for just like random chat stuff because I'm pretty busy throughout the day. But if you're trying to figure out if you should buy, if you should sell, if you should get a loan, what asset class to get into, if a mastermind is right for you, if you want to come to a retreat, whatever your thing would be, if you want to get on the Bigger Pockets podcast, if you want to speak to the mastermind that we run, that would be the best way. Kyle, can we confirm that is set up on davidgreen24.com? Do you know? It's not your job to know.
Yeah, I haven't been following that one. I've
been getting messages from people. I just don't know where they're coming from.
Oh, you have? Okay. I don't know if that's actually live.
Keep an eye out on that website, guys. That's going to be where it's going to come from.
Oh, yeah. I just saw this. There's some cool stuff. But go to davidgreen24.com either way, and you can see there's pretty much any resource related to David Green is going to be on there. You want to buy a house, you want to invest, you want to get a loan, you want to go to a retreat, you want to join the text letter, you want to chat, you want to you want to join the Spartan League. It is all there. So make sure you take some time, go to davidgreen24.com. The website's looking really good, actually. I haven't seen it in a few weeks, and it's
been working on it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, this looks great.
Trying to clean it up and then offer more things. So I'll be selling courses for people on investing and financial independence. The Pillars book is probably going to have a really big impact, I think, on the financial independence space. And lastly, we'd love to see you guys in Fort Lauderdale. If you are interested or know other people that live in Florida, Paula, hint, if you know anyone that's a Bigger Pockets fan, or if you'd like to come, Con, I would love to see you guys at the retreat we have scheduled for the end of July.
Yes, July 26th through the 30th. We've still got some spots left, and we are super excited about this. We always get pumped up about the retreats, and I know everybody that goes gets a ton of value out of them. They're honestly life-changing. So hope everybody can definitely let people know to come along to that. But with that, David, do you have any plans for 4th of July?
Is that this weekend?
It's on like Monday, I think, or Tuesday.
I didn't know that it was coming up. That's not uncommon. I guess I wear the right shirt, right, with the American flag for
well, yeah, that's perfect.
I don't know that I do have any plans either. I'll be going to my mom's, or I'll be asking you what you're doing.
Well, I'll be on the central coast of California visiting my brother, and my parents flew in from out of state. So all the cousins will be hanging out, and we're going to be doing a central coast 4th of July. So that'll be fun.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining me tonight. Appreciate you being here. And thanks for attending even after you had the inspection. All of you listening, thanks for spending your Friday night with us. We hope that we helped you make some money and avoid losing money and grow a little bit, because that's the goal. You can follow him online at Kyle Renke, Renke, and me at David Green 24. And make sure you like and subscribe to this channel because it's free and that would help us.
Yeah, totally. All right, guys, have a good one. Happy 4th. See ya.
Bye, guys.